Hey, you men who think you're fine, but when night comes, you can't sleep. Trevor Phillips here. Night makes liars look honest. That's why I like driving when the city's asleep. The streets get quiet, the headlights stretch out like confession lines, and every window you pass is just a black mirror. You see yourself over and over again. Different angles, same damage. Love is the same. In daylight, it's promises, smiles, pictures, people acting like they've solved life. At night, love turns into what it really is, a deal, a gamble, a trap you walk into because you're tired of walking alone. You want to know why love always turns into betrayal? Because love starts as a story, and stories need an audience. But life is long, and audiences get bored. I'm driving through the hills right now, the kind of road that curves like it's trying to dodge responsibility. The city lights behind me look like a glittering lie beautiful from far away, ugly up close. That's love, too. You fall in love from a distance. Then you move in, and suddenly you're brushing your teeth next to a stranger with your partner's face. People don't betray you when they hate you. They betray you when you become normal. When you stop being a thrill and start being a schedule. When you stop being a dream and start being the guy who asks, "Did you pay the bill?" When they wanted someone to ask, "Do you still want me?" I learned that lesson in the dumbest way possible, like most men do. Slowly, and then all at once. There was a time I believed in love. Not the poetry version, the useful version. The kind where you think if you choose the right person and you don't screw it up, life will finally stop punching you in the mouth. I met her when I wasn't looking for anything. That's how it always starts. You're not looking, so you're not armored. You're open. You're stupid. She laughed at my jokes. Not politely like, she actually meant it. She asked questions and waited for answers. She looked at me like I was something solid in a world made of cheap plastic. And I wanted that look. Men don't fall in love with women. They fall in love with how a woman looks at them. That's not romantic. That's survival. So I did what men do when they taste something good for the first time in years. I grabbed it too tight. We drove at night like this same kind of road, same kind of darkness. She'd sit there with her knees tucked up, pretending she wasn't cold. And she'd tell me about her childhood like it was an apology. She'd say things like, "I'm not like other people." And I'd believe her because I wanted a reason to believe. That's the first betrayal in every love story. You betray your own instincts. You silence that part of you that says, "This is too perfect," because perfect feels like a rescue, and men love rescues. Not because we're heroes, because we're tired. I used to think betrayal meant cheating. Some stranger's hands where yours used to be. Some late-night text with a name you don't recognize. But betrayal starts earlier than that. Betrayal starts the moment someone decides your feelings are less important than their comfort. It starts when they stop telling you the truth because the truth would cause a conversation they don't want. It starts when they begin managing you, not loving you. When they start editing their life around you like you're a problem, not a partner. I didn't see it at first. Nobody does. It's not a car crash. It's a slow leak. A glance at the phone, face down. A new password. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes. A nothing that comes too fast. You know what the scariest word in a relationship is? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. Nothing is the door closing quietly. Tonight, I'm thinking about her because of something I found in my glove compartment. A receipt, not for gas, not for groceries, a receipt for flowers. And the funny part is, I never bought flowers. I don't do flowers. Flowers are dead plants wrapped in paper sold to men as forgiveness. If you need dead plants to keep someone alive in your life, you're already losing. I picked up that receipt earlier when I was searching for a lighter. It was folded twice, tucked behind the manual like a secret that didn't want to be discovered. The date on it? 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I was sitting at home thinking everything was fine. She was in the shower. The apartment smelled like shampoo and lies, and I was too comfortable to notice. So tell me who bought flowers. And for who? I kept the receipt in my pocket all day like a pebble in a shoe. You can ignore it for a while, but every step reminds you something's wrong. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because here's another truth men don't like to admit. Sometimes you don't ask questions because you're afraid the answers will force you to act. And acting means change. Change means pain. And pain means you can't pretend anymore. I drove tonight on purpose. Same route we used to take. Same overlook where the city lights look like a promise. I parked there, engine running, staring out at the glittering skyline like it owed me an explanation. And I asked myself the question. You're probably asking too, is love supposed to end like this? Is betrayal inevitable? I think it is, most of the time. Not because people are evil, but because people are hungry. Hungry for attention. Hungry for validation. Hungry to feel alive. And love. Real love eventually becomes quiet. It becomes routine. It becomes two people trying to survive the same week. Quiet love is strong, but quiet love isn't exciting. And weak people confuse excitement with happiness. So when the quiet arrives, and it always arrives, some people panic. They think the relationship is dying, when really it's just growing up. And instead of watering it, they go hunting for fireworks. That's where betrayal is born, not in hatred, in boredom, in insecurity, in that childish need to feel chosen again without doing the work of staying loyal. I stared at the receipt until the numbers blurred. Then I did something I didn't plan to do. I opened my phone. Not her messages, not her photos, her calendar. And there it was, plain as day, sitting in the middle of next Tuesday, dinner 8:30 downtown. No name, no details, just dinner. She never writes dinner like that. When she's with me, it's groceries or gym or mom. Practical labels. Dinner is what you write when you don't want anyone to ask. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity, because the moment you realize love is turning into betrayal, you also realize you've been living in the warm part of a lie. The city lights shimmered below. I put the car in gear, and I decided I wasn't going to ask her. I was going to see it with my own eyes. Because if betrayal is inevitable, I want to know exactly when it became a choice. I was going to see it, not because I wanted pain, because I was done living on guesses. Tuesday came slower than it should have, like the week knew what it was carrying. I kept my mouth shut, played normal, nodded at the right moments, laughed at the right jokes. The usual performance two people, sharing air while hiding their real thoughts behind small talk. That's the cruel part about betrayal. It doesn't always change the betrayer's day. It changes yours. All day I watched her like a stranger wearing my memories. The way she moved around the kitchen. The way she checked her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she smiled soft, practice-like she was saving her real smile for later. At 7:40, she got dressed. Not casual dinner dressed. Careful dressed. Hair done in that way that says, I want to be seen. Perfume that lingers like a message. Clothes that fit too perfectly for someone who claims she doesn't care. Meeting a friend? I asked, forcing the words out like they were harmless. She didn't freeze. That was the first sign. People who tell the truth don't need rehearsal. Yeah, she said. Just dinner. I'll be back soon. Soon! Soon is what people say when they don't want you to count the hours. She kissed my cheek quick, light, almost polite, like kissing a coworker at a holiday party. Then she grabbed her purse and walked out, and the door closed with that soft click that always sounds like the end of something. I waited a full minute after her car pulled away. Not because I was being smart, because a part of me still wanted to be wrong. Wanted the universe to give me a normal ending. Then I picked up my keys and followed. Night driving feels different when you're chasing a truth you don't want. The road isn't relaxing anymore. The streetlights don't look pretty. Everything becomes sharp and clinical, like the city turns into a lab and you're the experiment. She drove with confidence. That told me she didn't think she was doing anything wrong. Or worse, she'd done it enough times that guilt had stopped showing up. A few turns, a couple red lights, and downtown taller buildings, brighter signs, more people pretending they're happy because the drinks are expensive. She parked in a garage near a restaurant that looked like it served tiny food on big plates and called it art. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. No dramatic hoodie, No sneaking like a cartoon villain. Just me, moving like a man who used to believe in love and now believes in evidence. Outside the restaurant, people laughed too loudly. Couples leaned close like they were trying to merge into one person to save space. A group of men in clean shirts stood around talking about money like it was a personality. I hate places like this. They smell like ambition and fear. I stood across the street watching the entrance, and then I saw her. She wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, taller than me, smoother than me. The kind of guy who looks like he grew up with a safety net and thinks that makes him wise. He had that easy confidence that comes from never being truly cornered. He leaned in when he talked. She laughed. Not her polite laugh, her real laugh. That laugh hit me harder than any proof. Because proof is information. Her laugh was emotion. And emotion is what men actually lose. They didn't hold hands. They didn't kiss. Nothing obvious. Nothing that would let me call her a villain without debate. But betrayal doesn't need a kiss. Betrayal is the way she looked at him like he was an escape route. They went inside. I stood there for a second too long, letting the reality settle into my bones. Then I crossed the street and walked in like I belonged there. That's the thing about heartbreak. It gives you this cold clarity. You stop caring about looking foolish. You stop caring about rules. You just want to see. I told the host I was meeting someone. He didn't care. People like him never care. As long as you look like you can pay. I found a spot near the bar with a clear view of their table. There they were. Candlelight, wine. That soft, intimate posture people adopt when they want to feel like the world is smaller. He spoke. She listened. She touched her hair classic signal like her body was trying to broadcast availability without using words. And I sat there, watching my life become a scene I wasn't cast in. I expected rage. What I got was something uglier. Understanding. Because it wasn't just that she was with him. It was that she looked relieved. Like being away from me was taking a weight off her chest. That's when you realize betrayal isn't always about lust. Sometimes it's about relief. Relief from the responsibilities. Relief from the routine. Relief from being seen too clearly by someone who knows the worst parts of you. The man at the bar next to me asked if I wanted a drink. I said no. I didn't want alcohol. Alcohol blurs. I wanted sharp edges. I watched them talk for almost 20 minutes. They weren't arguing. They weren't tense. They weren't hiding fear. They were comfortable. Comfort is intimacy's most honest language. At one point, she took her phone out and showed him something. He laughed. She laughed. Then she typed a quick message and set her phone face down. I didn't have to guess who she texted. Soon, I felt the urge to stand up and walk over there and say something that would make the whole restaurant go quiet. A line that would ruin their little movie. Something satisfying. Something loud. But loud is for men who still think the world is listening. I stayed seated because I wanted to see the end of the scene, not just interrupt it. Then something happened that shifted everything. A third person approached their table. A man in a suit. Older. Calm. The kind of calm that doesn't come from peace. It comes from preparation. He didn't smile. He didn't yell. He leaned down slightly, said something to the man sitting with her, and placed a hand on the back of the chair like he owned the room. The guy with her stiffened. The easy confidence evaporated. He looked up like a kid caught stealing. My wife went pale. Not embarrassed pale. Afraid pale. That fear was the most honest expression I'd seen on her face in months. The suited man spoke again, quietly, and she nodded too fast, too obedient. Then he looked around. Not randomly, deliberately, like he was searching for someone. Like he knew there was an audience, and when his eyes swept across the room, past the bar, past the couples, past the candlelight, they landed on me. Not a long stare, just a moment. But in that moment, he knew exactly who I was, and I knew exactly what that meant. This wasn't just an affair. This was bigger. This was a structure, a system. And I had just stepped into a story that started long before me. The suited man looked away, as if he'd confirmed what he needed. He straightened his jacket and walked out of the restaurant without urgency. The man at her table leaned in and spoke fast, desperate. My wife shook her head, mouth tight. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then toward the room again. Then, like she felt my stare, she glanced toward the bar, toward me. Our eyes met, and for a second, everything froze. She didn't look guilty. She looked caught, like a thief who just realized the house has cameras. Her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say my name, but she didn't, because names make lies real. I stood up. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just up. And the moment I moved, she grabbed her purse and pushed back from the table so fast, the chair legs scraped the floor. The man with her reached out, trying to hold her back, but she pulled away like his touch burned. She walked toward the exit, not running, but not calm. And I followed at a distance, because I didn't want a scene. I wanted the truth. Outside, the night air hit like cold water. She turned right toward the garage. I kept behind her, close enough to see her shoulders shaking, far enough that she couldn't accuse me of cornering her. Halfway to the garage, she stopped. She didn't turn around at first. She just stood there, back to me, breathing fast. Then she spoke. Not loud, not crying, just tight. How long have you been following me? I let the silence hang for a second. Long enough, I said. She finally turned, eyes glossy under the streetlight. This isn't what you think, she began. Automatic, rehearsed. I cut her off calmly. Then tell me what it is, I said, and start with who that man was. Her face twitched. A tiny crack in the mask. Because she knew right then there was no small lie that could patch this. And in her hesitation, I understood the worst part. Love doesn't always turn into betrayal because people fall out of love. Sometimes love turns into betrayal because one person was betraying the whole time, and you were just the last one to find out. She stood there under the streetlight like a broken statue, perfect shape, cracked inside. Cars passed at the intersection, tires hissing on asphalt, strangers moving through their lives like nothing important was happening. That's the strange thing about betrayal. The world doesn't stop. Only yours does. I can explain, she said, finally turning to face me. Her voice wasn't panicked anymore. It was controlled, measured. That scared me more than tears would have. Good, I replied, because I'm done guessing. She looked past me for a second, toward the restaurant, toward the door the suited man had walked through earlier, like she was checking whether the stage was still safe. He's not who you think, she said. That's funny, I answered, because none of you are. She flinched, but she didn't deny it. That told me everything I needed to know about how deep this went. We started walking toward the garage, side by side, not touching. Like strangers who happened to be going in the same direction. That's how relationships end. Not with explosions, but with parallel exits. You remember when we met? She asked quietly. I laughed once, short and bitter. Don't do that, I said. Don't use nostalgia like it's evidence. I'm serious, she insisted. I was honest then. No, I said. You were convincing. She stopped walking. Why do you always make it sound like I planned this? She snapped. Like I woke up one day and decided to destroy you? I turned to her slowly. Because you didn't destroy me by accident, I said. You destroyed me by maintenance. Her eyes narrowed. What does that even mean? It means, I continued, this wasn't one bad choice. This was a system, a routine. You didn't trip and fall into betrayal. You built a life where betrayal was convenient. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched heavy and thick. Finally, she exhaled. He's my husband, she said. The words landed dull, like a hammer wrapped in cloth. Legally, she added, as if that made it better. I felt my chest tighten, but I stayed upright. Men don't collapse when the truth arrives. They lock their knees and let it pass through. And the other guy, I asked. She hesitated. He's someone who made me feel seen again. There it was. Not love, not lust, validation. You were seen, I replied. You were just bored of the view. Her jaw clenched. You don't know what it's like, she said. Being needed all the time. Being someone's stability, their anchor. I almost smiled. That's funny, I said. Most men would kill to be needed. That's the problem, she shot back. You like being needed more than being wanted. I paused. Because that one landed. Not because it excused her, but because it explained something ugly and true. Men build their worth on usefulness. Women often build theirs on desire. And when those two currencies stop aligning, someone starts shopping elsewhere. So what was I asked. A role? She didn't answer immediately. Yes, she finally said. At first, that phrase again. Always at first. I leaned against a concrete pillar, feeling the cold seep through my jacket. My reflection stared back at me in the glass older than I remembered, sharper around the eyes. And him? I asked. The man in the suit. She swallowed. He knows, she said. About everything. About you. About him. About all of it. All of it, I repeated. She nodded. He figured it out years ago, she admitted. He didn't confront me. He just adjusted. Adjusted. Like this was a business model. So he lets you do this, I said. As long as it stays quiet. As long as it stays useful, she corrected. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a love triangle. It was a marketplace. People trading attention, loyalty, stability, desire, whatever they had too much of, for whatever they were starving for. And I was the idiot who thought love was a shelter instead of a transaction. Why me? I asked. She looked at me. Really looked at me this time. Because you believed, she said. Because you were honest. Because you didn't ask questions. There it was. The final insult, dressed as a compliment. You didn't choose me because I was special, I said quietly. You chose me because I was safe. She didn't argue. And in that moment, something inside me finally snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. Love didn't turn into betrayal. Love was the disguise betrayal wore to get close. I straightened up and stepped back. So what now? I asked. She took a breath, steadying herself. We end it quietly, she said. No scenes, no lawyers, no damage. We can tell people it just didn't work. I laughed. A real laugh this time. Of course, I said, because the lie deserves a clean ending. Her face hardened. You're being dramatic. No, I replied. I'm being accurate. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and held it up, not threatening, just present. You built a system, I continued, and systems don't break because of emotions. They break because of exposure. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't, she said. I won't scream, I corrected. I won't chase. I won't beg. I stepped closer, voice low. I'll just stop participating. That scared her more than anything else. Because systems can survive anger, they can't survive withdrawal. You think walking away makes you strong? She said, desperation creeping in. You think you'll come out clean? I looked at her for a long moment. No, I answered. I think I'll come out honest. And that's when I realized the final truth about betrayal. It doesn't destroy you because someone lied. It destroys you because you helped them keep the lie alive. I turned and walked back toward my car. She called my name once. I didn't turn around. Because if I did, she'd say something soft, something familiar, something designed to pull me back into the role. And I was done playing. As I drove away from downtown, the city lights faded in the mirror. The road ahead was darker, emptier, quieter. Good. Quiet is where you hear the truth. And the truth was simple. Love doesn't always turn into betrayal. But when it does, it's because one person loved the feeling and the other loved the lie. And now, with nothing left to lose, I was about to decide what kind of man survives that. I drove until the city stopped pretending. Streetlights thinned out. Buildings gave way to long stretches of road where the dark didn't bother hiding. The kind of places where you don't bring anyone unless you're ready to be honest or alone. The engine hummed steady. Like it didn't care what kind of man I decided to be next. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just end a relationship. It ends a version of you. The version that believed love was protection. The version that thought being chosen meant being safe. The version that stayed quiet because peace felt more important than truth. That version was dead. And I didn't mourn him the way movies tell you to. No tears, no shouting into the night. Just a strange lightness in my chest, like something heavy finally stopped pressing down. My phone buzzed once. A message from her. Please, we can fix this. Fix! That word again. Like this was a broken appliance. Like betrayal was a loose screw and not a deliberate design choice. I didn't reply, because there are some conversations that only exist to pull you back into the lie. I kept driving. The road straightened, long and empty, stretching ahead like a decision you can't reverse. And in that quiet, I started thinking, not about her, not about the other men, but about the pattern. Because once you've seen betrayal up close, you start recognizing it everywhere. You see it in friends who laugh with you but compete silently. In jobs that call you family, until profits dip. In promises made when everything's easy and broken when things get heavy. Betrayal isn't rare. Loyalty is. People don't wake up wanting to hurt you. They wake up wanting to feel good. And if feeling good requires stepping on you, they step. Not out of cruelty, but convenience. That's the truth nobody likes because it means you can't fix it with better communication or more patience. You fix it by choosing better people or by learning how to walk alone without bleeding all over the road. I pulled over at the same overlook as before. The city lights lay below, distant and quiet, like a memory you don't trust anymore. I turned off the engine. Silence rushed in, and in that silence, I finally said it out loud. Not for her, not for anyone else, but for myself. I ignored the signs. That's the part men hate admitting. We like to think we were blindsided, that we were victims of some master manipulator. Sometimes we are, but most of the time, we saw it. We just decided it was easier not to look. The late replies, the emotional distance, the way affection turned into obligation. The way I love you became punctuation instead of meaning. We notice. We just don't act, because acting threatens the comfort we've built our identity around. And that's how love turns into betrayal, not in one moment, but through 1,000 small silences. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't her. It was a message from an unknown number. It's done. Papers are filed. You're out. The man in the suit. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then locked the phone without replying. Out! That word should have felt like victory. It didn't. Freedom isn't exciting when you first get it. It's empty. It's quiet. It's standing in the ruins of a story you believed in, and realizing nobody's coming to write the next chapter for you. You have to do it yourself. I leaned back in the seat, eyes on the dark sky above the city glow. Here's the part nobody tells you about betrayal. It teaches you more about yourself than love ever did. Love showed me what I wanted to be seen as. Betrayal showed me what I actually tolerated. And tolerance, that's where most men lose their soul. They tolerate disrespect because it's familiar. They tolerate lies because truth would cost too much. They tolerate being second choice because at least they're chosen. Until one day, they realize they've been betraying themselves longer than anyone else ever did. I started the car again, not to chase anything, not to escape, just to move, because movement is the first honest decision after a long lie. As the road unspooled ahead of me, I thought about you, the guy watching this late at night, pretending this is just entertainment, pretending this isn't poking at something you've been avoiding. Listen to me. If you're in a relationship where you're always guessing, if you're the one doing all the adapting, if your peace depends on staying silent, that's not love. That's management. And management always ends in resentment or betrayal. Sometimes both. Love doesn't guarantee loyalty. Marriage doesn't guarantee honesty. Time doesn't guarantee truth. Character does. And character shows itself when staying loyal costs something. I drove past the city limits, past the last cluster of lights, into a stretch of road that felt like the edge of everything. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel afraid of being alone. Because being alone is honest. It doesn't promise you forever. It doesn't lie to you when it gets bored. It doesn't wake up one day and decide you're in the way. Alone is just alone. And from there, at least, you can build something real. I won't tell you that betrayal makes you stronger. That's a lie, too. What betrayal does is strip you down. And what you become after that part is on you. I shifted gears, the engine responding smoothly. Obedient. The night opened up ahead of me, wide and indifferent. Good. I don't need the world to care anymore. I just needed to stop lying. Hey, I muttered to myself, voice low in the dark. At least now you know. And knowing, no matter how ugly, is the only kind of love that never betrays you. I kept driving. Into the night. Into whatever comes next. And for once, I wasn't afraid of the dark.